Dreams of owning a piece of paradise,
Right.
whether it's, a beachfront condo or maybe like a charming villa tucked away in the mountains.
Sure.
But what happens when those dreams turn into a nightmare?
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's what we're unpacking today.
Yeah.
The story of the Nordis Group scam in Romania.
Right.
This isn't just some far-off scandal.
No. Yeah.
It's a cautionary tale that hits close to home for anyone thinking about real estate anywhere in the world.
I think what's so interesting about this case is how it exposes those cracks in the system.
Yeah.
The places where greed and deception can really take root and flourish.
Yeah.
And we're going to look at why it happened and what we can all learn from it.
Okay, so let's set the scene a little bit.
Yeah.
Nordis Group was a Romanian real estate developer.
Mm-hmm.
They were selling this vision of luxury, living in some of the most sought-after locations in the country.
Right.
Think Amamia, a vibrant seaside resort,
Yes.
and Sinai, a picturesque mountain town,
Beautiful.
like straight out of a postcard.
And that aspirational appeal was a big part of their strategy.
Yeah.
They weren't just selling apartments.
Right.
They were selling a lifestyle, a piece of the good life.
Right.
And that's how they managed to attract so many investors,
Yeah.
both from within Romania and internationally.
It's all about creating that sense of exclusivity and desire, right?
Definitely.
It makes you wonder, though, at what point did things start going south?
Well, the trouble began when Nordis Group started collecting advance payments for hundreds of apartments that were never actually built.
Oh, wow.
Imagine paying for a 5-star hotel stay and ending up in a rundown motel.
Ugh, that's the worst.
Yeah, it is.
It feels like such a betrayal of trust.
Absolutely. And to make matters worse, Nordis Group had this outrageous clause in their contracts.
Really?
Essentially a gag order.
What?
They were fining buyers a whopping €20,000 if they dared to breathe a word about the contract details.
Are you serious? Can you believe the nerve? It's like they were trying to silence their victims before they even knew they were victims.
Got it. That's exactly what it was.
Wow.
A deliberate tactic to prevent bad press and keep potential buyers in the dark about their shady dealings.
And as if that wasn't bad enough, they were also caught reselling apartments.
Oh, yeah?
They'd already sold to other buyers.
Double trouble.
Talk about double trouble.
Oh, this double selling scheme was a classic move,
Yeah.
preying on that sense of urgency and scarcity.
Right.
They'd pressure people into making quick decisions without doing their homework, and of course, it all came crashing down eventually.
And crash, it did.
Yes, it did.
Over 750 criminal complaints were filed against Nordis Group.
Wow.
That's when the Romanian authorities,
Mm-hmm.
specifically DICOT, their agency for tackling organized crime,
Right.
really started digging into what was going on.
The sheer volume of complaints was a clear sign that something was seriously wrong.
Yeah.
It signaled that this wasn't just a case of a few disgruntled buyers,
Right.
but a systemic issue potentially involving organized crime.
And then, to make things even more complicated, we have political figures entering the scene.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, because it turned out that Vladimir Siorba,
Mm-hmm.
a major shareholder in Nordis Group,
Right.
is connected to some powerful people,
Yes.
including Laura Vuckel,
Uh-huh.
a prominent Social Democratic MP.
Right, a very influential figure.
And naturally, this raised a lot of eyebrows about potential influence and whether there were any attempts to sweep things under the rug.
Of course.
Vuckel even resigned in the wake of the scandal,
Wow.
which only added fuel to the fire.
Yeah, it's a classic case of where money and power intersect,
Right.
leaving people wondering if justice can truly be served.
Absolutely.
But amidst all the legal and political drama, it's crucial to remember the human cost of this scam.
Absolutely. Let's not forget about the individuals and families who lost their life savings,
Right.
their dreams, their futures, because
Yeah.
they put their trust in Nordis Group.
Behind those legal documents and financial figures are real people whose lives were turned upside down.
It's heartbreaking.
It is.
And with the Bucharest court now ordering Nordis Group into insolvency,
Uh-huh.
it seems like the legal walls are finally closing in.
Yes, but the legal process is just one part of the story.
Yeah.
The emotional and financial scars of this scam will likely linger for years to come.
So while the legal battles continue, let's zoom out a bit
Okay.
and look at another case that adds another layer to this whole story.
Right.
A case that involves EU funds fraud.
Interesting.
This case takes us beyond Romania's borders
Uh-huh.
and highlights the complex world of international finance
Right.
and the vulnerabilities that exist even within sophisticated systems.
Absolutely.
Intriguing. Tell me more about this EU connection.
Well, the European Public Prosecutor's Office,
Okay.
or EPO,
Mm-hmm.
has been investigating a criminal ring suspected of having ties to Italian mafia groups.
Yeah.
These individuals are accused of providing false letters of guarantee for projects financed by EU funds.
Wait, so they're basically forging documents to get their hands on millions of euros in EU money. That's audacious.
It is a sophisticated scheme designed to exploit loopholes in the system,
Yeah.
and it resulted in an estimated 4.3 million in illicit gains.
Wow, that's a significant sum.
It is.
And to make things even more complex, these fraudulent activities involved companies registered in Czechia and Latvia,
Right.
making this a truly international operation.
This case really underscores the transnational nature of organized crime
Right.
and the challenges that authorities face in tracking down and prosecuting these criminals.
Wow.
The penalties are severe, though. If found guilty, those involved could face between 4 and 15 years in prison.
That's a hefty sentence. It shows how seriously authorities are taking this type of fraud.
Absolutely.
But what exactly does this EU funds case have to do with Nordis Group? Are they directly connected?
Well, while not directly connected, the EPPO's investigation into this EU funds fraud is part of a larger crackdown on similar criminal schemes operating within the EU.
I see.
It highlights the vulnerabilities that exist and the need for increased vigilance and cooperation between countries.
So it's like a ripple effect.
Exactly.
With investigations like this, shedding light on potential weaknesses that groups like Nordis Group could exploit.
You got it.
So this brings us to an important question.
Okay.
What can we as potential investors or even just informed citizens do to protect ourselves?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed or powerless in the face of these elaborate schemes.
Right.
But there are things you can do.
What concrete steps can we take?
It all boils down to due diligence,
Okay.
which is essentially about doing your homework before making any investment.
Right. Due diligence.
Yes.
We hear that phrase a lot, but let's break it down. What does it really mean in a practical sense,
Yeah.
especially in a case like this?
It's about going beyond the glossy brochures and marketing pitches.
Okay.
It's about digging deeper, researching the developer's history,
Uh-huh.
scrutinizing those contracts,
Right.
and most importantly, seeking independent legal advice.
So don't just fall for the allure of a dream property.
No.
Do your homework and ask the tough questions.
Exactly.
If something seems too good to be true, it probably is.
You got it. And this applies not just to real estate in Romania, but anywhere in the world.
Right.
Scams can happen anywhere.
Right.
So being informed and vigilant is crucial.
It's about empowering ourselves as consumers and investors.
Yes.
To make informed decisions and avoid becoming another statistic.
Exactly.
Right.
It's about taking control and doing everything we can to protect our interests.
Okay, so due diligence is key.
It is.
But let's face it, it can feel overwhelming,
Sure.
especially for someone new to the world of investing.
Of course.
What are some of the red flags that we should be on the lookout for? What are the signs that something might be fishy?
That's an excellent question. And that's exactly what we'll delve into in the next part of our deep dive.
Stay tuned, folks, because we're about to equip you with the knowledge and tools you need to navigate the complex world of real estate investing and hopefully avoid becoming another victim of a scam like the Nordis Group case. We'll uncover the telltale signs of fraudulent activity, explore strategies for thorough due diligence, and discuss how to advocate for stronger consumer protection measures.
It's all about turning this cautionary tale into an opportunity to learn, grow, and make smarter investment decisions.
But for now, take a moment to reflect on what we've discussed so far. What stands out to you? What questions are swirling in your mind? We'll be back soon to continue our deep dive into this fascinating and frankly disturbing case.
I look forward to it.
Yeah.
So let's dive into those red flags.
Okay, so let's talk about how to spot those warning signs.
All right.
What should we be looking out for?
All right.
What are the telltale signs that something might not be quite right?
One of the first things to watch out for is a developer who tries to pressure you into making a quick decision. You know, the classic limited time offer tactic.
Right.
It's designed to create a sense of urgency. Like, you'll miss out on this incredible opportunity if you don't sign on the dotted line right this minute.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Yeah,
That pressure to jump in before you've really had time to think things through.
exactly.
Yeah.
Legitimate developers understand that buying property is a big decision,
Right.
one of the biggest you'll ever make, and they'll give you the time you need to do your due diligence.
Right.
They won't try to rush you.
So pressure tactics, that's a big red flag.
It is.
What else should we be wary of?
Pay close attention to the developer's track record.
Okay.
This is crucial. Have they successfully completed projects in the past?
Hmm.
Are there any reports of delays, disputes, or legal issues?
Okay.
This information is often available online through public records,
Right.
real estate forums, even news articles. A little bit of digging can go a long way.
It's like checking someone's references before you hire them, right?
You want to know who you're dealing with? Absolutely.
Mm.
And along those same lines, be wary of promises that seem too good to be true.
Okay.
Things like exorbitant returns, guaranteed rentals, or prices significantly below market value.
Right.
If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
It's like that old saying, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Exactly.
Wise words to live by, especially when it comes to real estate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about contracts.
Okay.
Never sign a contract without having it reviewed by an independent legal professional.
Right.
They can help you understand all the legal jargon and identify any potential risks or those sneaky hidden clauses that can really trip you up.
Because let's face it, those contracts can be dense and confusing.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Full of legal terms that most of us wouldn't understand. It's essential to have someone on your side who can translate it all into plain English.
Precisely. And while you're at it, ask about the payment schedule and how escrow arrangements work.
Okay.
Reputable developers typically use escrow accounts to hold buyer funds until certain milestones are met. It's an important safeguard.
So you're not just handing over a huge sum of money and hoping for the best.
Exactly. Escrow accounts provide protection for both the buyer and the seller.
Okay.
They ensure that the funds are released only when certain conditions are met, like the completion of construction or the transfer of ownership.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It adds a layer of transparency and accountability to the whole process.
It does.
So we've talked about pressure tactics,
Yeah.
checking the developer's track record, being wary of unrealistic promises, getting those contracts reviewed, and understanding escrow arrangements. Any other red flags we should be watching out for?
Yes. Pay close attention to the developer's communication style.
Okay.
Are they transparent and responsive to your questions?
All right.
Or do they avoid giving you straight answers or try to dismiss your concerns?
Okay.
Open and honest communication is vital in any relationship, especially when you're talking about a major investment like this.
So if they're being evasive or dismissive, that's a big warning sign. It's like they have something to hide.
Exactly. And this might seem obvious, but trust your gut instinct.
Okay.
If something feels off, if you have any doubts whatsoever, don't be afraid to walk away.
Right.
It's better to miss out on a potential opportunity than to fall victim to a scam and lose your hard-earned money.
I love that trust your gut.
Yeah.
It's like that inner voice that sometimes knows more than we realize. We should listen to it more often.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And always remember, knowledge is power. The more informed you are, the better equipped you'll be to make sound investment decisions.
That's so true. Due diligence isn't about being paranoid. It's about being informed and proactive, taking control of your financial future. Now, we've talked a lot about what individuals can do to protect themselves, but what about the bigger picture?
Yeah.
What role do governments and regulatory bodies play in preventing these scams?
That's a crucial question. Governments have a responsibility to create and enforce laws that protect consumers and investors,
Right.
especially when it comes to real estate.
So it's about putting in place safeguards that create a level playing field and protect both domestic and international investors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This includes things like stricter licensing requirements for developers,
Okay.
mandatory escrow accounts, and transparent property registries.
Right.
It's also about having clear and accessible channels for reporting and investigating complaints.
So it's about making it much harder for these scams to operate in the first place. And what about consumer protection?
Right.
What can be done to help those who have already fallen victim to these schemes?
That's a critical aspect too. Governments need to establish accessible and efficient mechanisms for victims to seek redress.
Okay.
This could be through legal action,
Right.
mediation, or even compensation funds.
Right.
It's about ensuring that justice is served and that victims are not left to bear the burden alone.
It's not just about prevention, but also about providing support and recourse for those who have been wronged.
Precisely. And it's about sending a clear message to these fraudsters that their actions have consequences.
Right.
They can't just disappear with people's money and get away with it.
Right. Now let's talk about international cooperation. In today's globalized world, these scams often cross borders, as we saw with the EU funds fraud case. How can countries work together to combat this kind of transnational crime?
International cooperation is absolutely essential in tackling financial crime.
Yeah.
It's about sharing information,
Right.
coordinating investigations, and working together to close those loopholes that criminals exploit.
It's about recognizing that we're all in this together, that a crime committed in one country can have repercussions around the world.
Exactly. It's about creating a united front against these global networks of deceit and working to protect investors everywhere.
Now, I know we've covered a lot of heavy stuff today, but I want to end this part of our deep dive on a more positive note.
I like that. What do you have in mind?
It would be easy to feel overwhelmed or discouraged by all of this, but I think it's important to remember that we as individuals have a voice and a role to play in shaping a more just and transparent world.
Absolutely. We can demand stronger consumer protection measures, support organizations that are fighting financial crime, and most importantly, educate ourselves and others about the importance of due diligence and responsible investing.
We can use our voices, our votes, and our wallets to hold developers, governments, and regulatory bodies accountable. We can be the change we want to see in the world.
Well said. It's about turning this cautionary tale into a call to action.
Exactly. And remember, knowledge is power. The more we understand about how these scams work, the better equipped we'll be to protect ourselves and those around us.
And with that in mind, let's shift our focus back to the Nordis Group scam and see what broader lessons we can glean from this unfortunate event.
Okay, let's connect those dots. What are the key takeaways here, and how do they relate to the bigger picture of real estate investment?
Okay.
Not just in Romania, but globally.
The Nordis Group saga, while specific to Romania, serves as a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities that exist within real estate markets worldwide. It's a wake-up call, urging us to be vigilant, not just as individual investors, but also as a global community.
It's like that saying, sunlight is the best disinfectant. Yes.
Bringing these issues to light, no matter how uncomfortable, is the first step towards addressing them.
Exactly. And the more we talk about these issues, the more awareness we raise,
Right.
and the better prepared we are to combat these sophisticated schemes.
So let's turn this cautionary tale into a catalyst for positive change. What are the key lessons that we can all take away from the Nordis Group case?
Yeah.
What can we do to protect ourselves and create a safer, more transparent real estate market for everyone?
Okay, so we've uncovered the dark side of Nordis Group's real estate dealings,
We have.
and we've explored those vulnerabilities
Yeah.
that exist in markets all over the world.
Absolutely.
Now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about solutions.
Right.
What can we learn from this case?
Yeah.
And how can we use that knowledge
Really?
to create a more transparent and accountable real estate landscape?
The Nordis Group scandal really throws a spotlight on the pressure points in the system.
Right.
It highlights the need for greater vigilance, not just from individual investors,
Right.
but from those who are supposed to be overseeing these markets,
Yeah.
regulatory bodies and governments.
It's a reminder that everyone has a role to play, right?
Absolutely.
We can't just assume that someone else is taking care of things.
We can't.
Yeah.
And the more we talk about these issues, the more awareness we raise.
Yeah.
And that's a crucial step in combating these increasingly sophisticated scams.
It's about turning this cautionary tale into a call to action, right?
It is.
So let's get specific.
Yeah.
What are some of the key takeaways from the Nordis Group case?
All right.
And how can we apply those lessons to protect ourselves and create a safer real estate market for everyone?
Well, one of the most important lessons is the need for robust legal frameworks and enforcement mechanisms
Okay.
that act as deterrents to fraudulent activity.
Yeah.
We need clear rules of the game,
Right.
and those rules need to have teeth.
So it's about creating a system where it's much harder for these scams to operate in the first place. What would that look like in practice?
Think stricter licensing requirements for developers,
Okay.
mandatory escrow accounts, transparent property registries
Right.
that are easily accessible to anyone who wants to do their due diligence.
Okay.
And of course, there need to be clear channels for reporting and investigating complaints.
It sounds like it's all about increasing transparency and accountability at every level of the real estate sector.
You got it. And that transparency needs to extend to those involved in international finance as well,
Right.
especially when it comes to projects funded by organizations like the European Union.
Right, because the EU funds fraud case showed us how interconnected these systems are.
Yeah.
A scam in one country can have ripple effects that reach far beyond its borders.
Absolutely. So in addition to those national level safeguards,
Yeah.
we need greater international cooperation to share information,
Right.
coordinate investigations, and close those loopholes that criminals exploit.
It's about creating a global network of protection, right? A united front against those who would prey on unsuspecting investors.
Exactly. And it's not just about prevention.
Right.
It's also about providing support and recourse for those who have already fallen victim to these schemes.
That's so important. What can be done to help those who have already been hurt by these scams?
Well, for starters, governments need to establish easily accessible and efficient mechanisms for victims to seek redress,
Okay.
whether through legal action mediation or compensation funds. It's about ensuring that justice is served and that victims aren't left to shoulder the burden alone.
Right. It's about recognizing the human cost of these scams and providing support to those who have been impacted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, shifting gears slightly, I think it's also important to address the emotional side of investing,
Okay.
particularly in real estate.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the excitement, the
Right.
dream of owning a piece of paradise.
Yeah.
But we need to balance that emotion with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Right, because when we're emotionally invested, we might be more likely to overlook those red flags, to ignore that nagging feeling that something isn't quite right.
Exactly. And that's why education is so important.
Yeah.
The more we understand about these scams,
Huh?
the better equipped we are to protect ourselves and those around us.
So it's about turning that cautionary tale into a catalyst for positive change.
It is. The Nordis Group case should be a wake-up call for everyone involved in the real estate sector,
Yeah.
from developers and investors to policymakers and law enforcement agencies.
Right.
It's a reminder that we all have a role to play in creating a more transparent, accountable, and ethical real estate market.
It's about ensuring that the dream of homeownership doesn't turn into a financial nightmare.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it's a conversation that needs to continue, not just within the real estate industry, but within society as a whole.
Now, before we wrap up, I'd like to leave our listeners with a final thought-provoking question.
Okay, I'm listening.
How do we strike that balance between encouraging real estate investment,
Right.
which can be such a powerful engine for economic growth and wealth creation,
Mm-hmm.
and ensuring that those investments are protected?
That's a great question, and there's no easy answer. It's about finding that sweet spot where we encourage responsible investment
Yeah.
while simultaneously implementing measures that deter and punish fraudulent activities. It's a complex equation,
Yeah.
but one that we need to solve.
It's a challenge, but one that we can't afford to ignore.
We can't.
Yeah.
And the more we talk about it,
Right.
the more progress we'll make.
Well said. So there you have it, folks. Our deep dive into the Nordis Group scam. We've uncovered the details of the case, explored the broader implications, and hopefully provided you with the tools and knowledge to navigate the real estate world with confidence and caution.
Remember, due diligence is your best defense.
It is.
Don't be afraid to ask those tough questions.
Ask those questions.
Seek professional advice, and most importantly, trust your gut.
And if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. We hope this deep dive has been informative and eye-opening, and that it empowers you to make informed decisions. We encourage you to share your thoughts and experiences and continue the conversation about how we can create a safer and more transparent real estate market for everyone.
Because ultimately, it's about protecting people's dreams and their hard-earned savings.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah.
Until next time, stay informed, stay vigilant, and keep those questions coming.